Three pilots have crashed and got stranded in a boat amidst the Pacific Ocean. Find out what they are determined to do for survival by watching our recap of the film Against the Sun. 1942, World War II, South Pacific. A plane with 3 American pilots is flying in the sky. They have lost the signal from the base and don't know where to fly because of poor visibility. Moreover, they are running out of fuel. The commander named Harold Dixon warns the others that they will land right in the water and asks the pilots to wear life jackets. The landing turns out to be a hard one, and the man breaks his nose. The plane is drifting on the water and is about to sink. It's essential to get off the plane as soon as possible. The navigator, Tony Pastula, and radio operator, Gene Aldrich, are unable to unbuckle their seatbelts and sink with the plane. At the cost of incredible effort, they manage to free themselves and swim to the surface. All pilots swim to a small lifeboat and struggle to inflate it. Moreover, the pump is broken, and it takes the men a long time to accomplish the task. They even lose their only flashlight in the process. Finally, they have succeeded. But now the pilots have another challenge. They have to climb aboard, and that's not so easy. Helping each other, the men find themselves in a tiny raft and joke that sardines in a can have more room than they do. The men shiver with cold, but believe they will soon be found. Morning is coming, the sun is out, and the pilots feel a little warmer. They joke and drink imaginary coffee. The pilots look in all directions not to miss the rescue ships. Many hours pass in anticipation. They see some spots in the sky and hope it's an airplane. The men shout and wave their hands. Alas, nothing happens. The pilots become terribly distressed. They are afraid that was their only chance. The pilot commander orders his crew not to give up and to keep fighting for their lives. The pilots empty their pockets. Inside, they find 2 loaded magazines, a pocket knife, pliers, a roll of wire, a rope, a whistle, an empty water bag, and even liquid cement. Those are not the most useful finds. The men have no oars, no map, no flashlights, no working watch. And worst of all, no food or water. Nevertheless, the commander remains resolute. He orders the pilots to throw away heavy boots overboard, but still leaves his own in the dinghy. Pastula notices that there's still a gun in the holster. Perhaps it might come in handy. Meanwhile, the commander falls asleep in the lifeboat and has a dream about them flying an airplane and losing their course. The sunset comes, the night falls. The pilots dream of ham and cheese sandwiches. They decide to be on watch to signal for help if they see someone on the horizon. Pastula says he's thirsty, and the commander begins to urinate right into his shoe, then drinks its contents. The pilots are disgusted. In the morning of the second day, the men appear even more tired. Their dinghy drifts slowly through the waves in an unknown direction. The pilots are starving, but there is plenty of fish in the ocean. Pastula and Aldrich use a rope, spring and pliers to make something resembling a fishing rod. They throw it in the water, something bites, and the men pull the rod up. But the rope appears without a hook. There seems to have been someone even more hungry under the water. The men are exhausted from the heat, and Pastula is tensely cleaning his gun. They take up fishing once again, but this time nothing bites. Aldrich puts on his life jacket and jumps into the water looking for something edible. Suddenly, the commander warns that there might be a shark, and the frightened guy swims back to the boat. Another sunset comes. It is spectacular, but the only thing the pilots can think of is food. In the morning, the men chat about life, drink imaginary coffee again, but unexpectedly start arguing about who is to blame for them going off course and crashing. Pastula is getting worse. He wants to drink seawater, but his commander forbids him to do so. They have been floating for 5 days, and during that time, neither Pastula nor Aldrich has taken any sips of water. Unlike the commander, they refuse to drink their own urine. Dixon finds a pencil in his pocket and draws a map on his life jacket. They determine an approximate location and want to swim to the nearest island. However, everything depends on the wind. If it doesn't push the boat in the right direction, they'll have to swim to land on their own. Aldrich starts praying for rain. After that, they all sing a funny song to cheer themselves up. The heat makes the skin inflamed and red. At night, Pastula has a nightmare about drowning. He wakes up and realizes that it's starting to rain. The pilots yell with joy and collect the rainwater in a bag. They greedily swallow every drop. It looks like their prayer has worked. Another morning comes. Aldrich attempts to catch a fish but has no luck. In desperation, he takes out his pocket knife and tries to stab a fish as it swims by. And it works! He pulls out a huge fish. It's so big that the men can barely keep it in the boat. Aldrich cuts it up with a knife and finds a small yet alive fish inside, and eagerly sends it into his mouth. The other pilots do the same, and the most important thing is that now they have something to bait the other fish. Pastula tells Aldrich about his sister, a beautiful brunette with green eyes. According to the man, she is very smart and is a great cook. The merry conversation is interrupted by some noise. The commander fears that it might be sharks and they have sensed blood. Their dinghy is indeed surrounded by a shiver of predators. Luckily, they do not attack. At night, the pilots have more nightmares. Aldrich wants to wash up in the ocean, but something grabs his hand. Pastula shoots into the water. The commander orders the guy to stop firing. Aldrich is wounded, with the shark teeth marks on his arm. Pastula bandages his arm with a scarf. At dawn, the pilots drink water greedily from the bag. During the day, they pray for salvation, and at night, they look at the stars. Sharks sometimes swim nearby, but luckily, they don't touch the boat. However, the men are getting worse. One day, Aldrich spots something on the horizon. Alas, it is only a mirage. Their third week on the ocean begins. Pastula looks thoroughly at his gun. Aldrich takes the pistol and points it at an albatross that has landed on their boat. A shot rings out. The wounded bird falls into the water. The frightened commander wakes up and jumps into the water to get the albatross. At that moment, a shark appears nearby. Dixon rushes to the dinghy with all his might. At the last second, he manages to climb up the boat and avoid becoming lunch for the shark. The huge predator swims right under them and starts circling beside the lifeboat. Yet the men are too hungry. They eat the raw albatross meat. Pastula desperately looks at the 3 bullets in his hand and drops them into the ocean. At night, the commander again has nightmares about crashing. After waking up, he scolds the pilots for all of them sleeping and not monitoring the situation at sea. Aldrich refuses to do that. He looks awful. His body is badly sunburned. The man approaches the commander that he is to blame for the plane crash. Dixon says that according to his map, the islands should have appeared 3 or 4 days ago, which means the pilots have missed them. The men scream and blame each other. The commander admits that he fell asleep while piloting the plane, and that's why it went off course. He confesses to feeling terribly sorry. The men start crying, however, they keep struggling. Dixon takes a pocket knife and cuts off the soles of his shoes. That way, he makes something resembling a small oar. They paddle in the hope of seeing land and dream of hot supper. The 30th day begins. The pilots look even worse. They find it very difficult not only to move, but even to talk. Still, they continue rowing with the last of their strength. Pastula feels the worst. Fortunately, it starts raining. The pilots greedily swallow every drop and fill their bag. Soon, they realize it's not just rain. The weather gets worse, and then a storm begins. The dinghy with the pilots is hit by the waves. The commander is thrown into the ocean. The other pilots grab him, but at that moment, a huge wave appears and capsizes the dinghy. Aldrich and Dixon can't find Pastula anywhere. Fortunately, he is alive and soon swims up to the lifeboat as well. The men turn the dinghy over. They climb onto it and hold each other tightly, so they don't get washed away into the ocean. They have survived again. The storm ends and the morning comes. The pilots discuss what they will do if any of them die. Aldrich thinks that some organs may be eaten, though they've lost the knife and pliers. Still, the kidneys are easier to get, one for each person. The man decides to change the conversation and talk about their relatives. They start hallucinating and burst into tears. But Pastula is sure they mustn't give up, so they keep paddling with their hands. The next morning, the commander tries to awake Pastula, but he shows no signs of life. After a while, he still barely opens his eyes and whispers that he hears music. The commander loses hope. He drinks seawater, though he is not supposed to do that. Suddenly, Aldrich notices something green on the horizon. The pilots peer into the distance and see land. They start crying and screaming with happiness. The men row towards the shore with all their might. Maybe it's a Japanese island, but what choice do they have? Near the shore, a big wave hits the boat and throws the man out of it. The pilots do reach the land and collapse onto the sand, exhausted. They see some kind of a building and realize that there are people here. The men rise to their feet and wandered away. They have survived. This story is based on true events. At the end of the movie, we see a photo of the very pilots who fought for their lives and won. Would you manage to survive in such a situation? Any likes and subscriptions are the best rewards for our work. You've been watching the Movie Cat channel. I'll see you later.